and I ran away from home. I had just read a book about a young boy who was suffering and now left his parents' home. I went to Lagos and made it. Right? So me, in my mind, I think I was 10 also. I can't remember. I was maybe 9 even, but I was young. And I said, oh, I'm going. I'll make it. They asked me to kneel down. I bolted. Like I'm going to make it. And then I'll come back to prepare them. So
he's one of those people who is a role model, who is a mentor to so many young Nigerians.
Black people out works with Forbes. I couldn't get anything like to hold on to. But,
I don't know how many black people in terms of the stats, but I know there are black contributors. The woman I know, there are actually 2 women I know who are contributors. So, and I know that there were a couple of Nigerians who have contributed. There is this guy who is the founder of Mariblocks. I know he used to do crypto finance content for Forbes. Now he has his own stuff, Mariblocks. I know that this girl used to write for Forbes Health. Although Forbes Health is not exactly, no, it's still Forbes, yeah, but like it's that side of Forbes. But she used to write there. I know that Margaret Etudo. So if she watches this video, hello.
Yeah.
John Iwuzo used to also write for Forbes Advisor. There have been quite a number of Nigerians that I know who written for Forbes in the past, but they are not a lot.
They're not a lot.
They're not a lot.
They're not. I mean, obviously, my question is like, does it give you choose? Like,
Yeah.
in all honesty,
It does. I mean, if you say you're a Forbes contributor, it just make you seem hallowed.
Yeah.
Somehow. I try to be. I'm not really a modest person, I think.
Obviously. I know you are. You are.
I mean, it's good because it just automatically opens some doors for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't make people question your experience, even though I have said, and I still say, that the fact that you write for big media publications, like Forbes or Wall Street Journal, even though it's expected that you will be at the top of your game, it doesn't mean that you're better than every other person. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, growing up like you grew up in Akure.
It was good. When I think about it now in hindsight, the first exposure I had to books was from my dad. But they were Christian books, but my dad read a lot of books, Creflo Dollar, T.D. Jakes, Kenneth Higgins. So, I read those books. And I grew up in a home where there was love, our parents were very all about our education. That experience with those books then now evolved such that when I was in GSS 1 or 2, there were these books that were no longer needed in the library. And so they had dumped them, So I went literally to the dumpster and I went to pick those books, So they were like novels. I picked a big encyclopedia, like very big like this, Encyclopedia of the Americas, Encyclopedia. When I was in GSO, I knew all the states in America offhand.
Wow.
Yeah, I can still write a lot of them, like right now, I knew about, there was also this Greek mythology book that I got.
Interesting.
So I knew about Greek gods and all that. In GSS2 also, I read almost the entire dictionary, Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. And I just wanted to learn words, so that I could insult my friends, So those books were good. I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I read Tom Sawyer's Adventures. I was like reading a lot of books. So those were, I think, very good for me. So my exposure to my dad's library created a lot for books in me. And then that evolved and I started to read more things. So, as a young boy, I used to write stories as well. I think I wrote my first story when I was maybe 6. So then they would buy books for us. I would read all the comprehension passages in the English language textbook, before school started. I also used to draw cartoons, tell a story. There was a character that I had. His name was Badu. So there was a Badu before the Badu, that was what growing up was like for me. And our parents were really strict disciplinarians, but it didn't also still mean that you wouldn't do what you wanted to do as a young prankster. There was a time my dad was flogging me and I ran away from home.
Are you serious?
I had just read a book about a young boy who was suffering and now left his parents' home. I went to Lagos and made it. Right? So me in my mind, I think I was 10 also. I can't remember. I was maybe 9 even, but I was young. And I said, "Oh, I'm going. I'll make it." They asked me to kneel down. I bolted. Like I'm going to make it, and then I'll come back to prepare them. So I went to a place in Akure called Stadium Road. I was there, and I sat beside this woman who was selling roasted corn, and I was just there with her. And it was now around past 11. She was packing up. She gave me corn, cold corn, but at least she gave me food. And then she packed up, and then I went to one corner around the stadium, the gates to the stadium. I wanted to sleep there. Then there was this vigilante man, this vigilante group, nights. What they call them?
Night watchers.
I don't know. Night walkers. Security guards. He just said, "Hey, who's that? Hey." I just ran. Meanwhile, they had already started looking for me. All over, they were calling me. They had almost gone to the TV station to place a public service announcement. So they formed a song for me then.
So maybe just the influence of books, or
I don't know what it was. The book that even inspired it wasn't like it was a Nigerian book.
You mentioned seeing a laptop at like
yeah. Even though I didn't know how to boot it.
Yeah.
Right. But my first time seeing a laptop was I was pretty young. And it was all those white face laptop where the face looks like all this calculator face. It wasn't colored. It wasn't colored.
I don't think I even had that.
It wasn't colored. It wasn't all these colored laptops. It was like one of the very first laptops that was I think the year must have been like 2003.
Wow.
Or 2004, 2005. GP, this is my PA. It's also my PA. It's also my friend.
Was born in Akure, right? In Akure, to the guy who today, that guy who was born in Akure, who tried to convince banks that he's such a good public speaker that he can coach their bankers to be good speakers, and never got a gig via that, to the guy today who is a successful tech analyst, who is a Forbes contributor, who writes for Fast Cars and a whole lot of.
So, you once worked at a radio station.
Yeah.
Right. So, was it during the time you were already doing freelancing, or it was before?
It was the first stint with the radio station was Futa Radio when I was in school.
Oh, okay.
Like I went for the audition, we read some stuff, and they picked me, right? And then I did some beats for them, but I couldn't continue because then I got really involved with church work at the time. So I left the radio station. I couldn't do it anymore. But what I then did was I founded a public speaking academy.
Okay.
In 200 level. And I went around banks in Akure and I kept saying, I wanted to see their manager. And they would say, sit down there. I printed a flyer with my face on the flyer. Me, we don't get anything. I had this foam that had already been soaked in oil in my pockets, in the nylon in my pockets for cleaning my shoes. Because I was also trekking and my shoes were dusty. I went to MFM, I went to Christ Embassy, I went to Redeem. I wanted to train their youths, print their proposals. The only place I didn't go to was the governor's office because I wanted to go actually. But I went to almost all the banks in Akure, So, but I had a public speaking academy.
Did anyone of them work out?
No, none of them. Somebody even asked me at one of the banks. I think it was Wema Bank. I can't remember which one. I think it was Wema Bank. I don't know. I don't think so. But one of the banks, And he said, "Is this you?"
Okay.
And I said, "Yeah, that's me." Okay, sit down there. And we'll come up for him.
Okay.
I studied agricultural extension and communications technology. A part of the course had to do with like communicating via radio and all that. So we did some bit of stuff with radio. We wanted to even set up a radio station for our department. At the time, but we couldn't.
If you'd like to give newbie freelancers or talk to us from the experience?
Yeah, I think the first mistake we make when we make bulk money is like, and I think it's usually like that for most people. It doesn't have to be the same for you. It's like just spend it and not to know that, the graph for money is like this, And it's not necessarily me being pessimistic. It's just what happens. It's life. Life is highs and lows.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got to recognize that. So, when you first get that good money, at least for your level, you understand, because good money is relative. Yeah. 1 million is good money, 5 million is good money, 100K is good money. Even, it just depends. Just like really be careful about increasing your expenses or your standard of living. You don't have to buy things. It's not everything that you can buy that you should buy.
You should buy. Yeah.
And then look out for like investments. Let's go downstairs.
Okay.
Don't quickly announce that like you're making a lot of money and then you're putting pressure on yourself now because people know that you're making money.
Yeah.
You don't need all of the noise.
The attention and all.
Apart from that, there is sort of like an information silo in the industry where, because people don't know what other people charge, they are shortchanging themselves, right? And they're charging lower than they should. And that's why there should be free flow of information, right? But also you have to be careful, especially in the sort of environment that we live in. So for instance, I rarely talk about figures. If you ask me, how much you make, maybe once in a while, right? So you have to be careful about dragging that sort of attraction or attention to yourself at the early stage. You don't need all of that, And then make informed decisions about investments, which are some of the things I'm starting to do now, right? Which I didn't really do. I did do some bit of things. I did like an agri business 2 times. I did fish pond, the fish pond business. Twice it failed. The first one was a management problem. I had put somebody there who wasn't a good manager. I thought like because that person was sort of like a friend, they would be able to manage it good. But that was a mistake. The person was essentially, the person didn't do well with it. Then the other one, which was even the bigger one, where I lost like a lot of money. Like millions of naira just went into that. It was a big lesson for that kind of business. You have to do it where you can actually really supervise it yourself. Or where you have mechanisms in place. I know we don't like to talk about it, but savings is good. You must have an emergency fund where you can actually, if something happens, you can actually live on that money for at least 3 to 6 months. You need to have that. I won't go into the conversation about whether you should save in naira or dollar. All right. It really depends on the context. People have saved in dollars and they lost money. They bought dollar when it was like high, and now dollar crashed against the naira, and they lost money. And if the naira keeps performing well, the dollar is going to keep going down.
What do you think about stocks, Casey?
You also need to do it. You also need to make like informed decisions. I don't do stocks yet. You know what you are getting into. Money is so difficult to make, but very easy to lose. Forex is good, but you have to do it well. All these ones where you go give some people your money to be trading.
So we're trading for you.
I think like if I'm not in control, either directly or through the systems I've put in place, I don't want to. If I don't have some level of control, I don't want to put so much money into it. You understand? That was a mistake with the fish thing.
Talk about people asking you for money. Like, how do you handle that?
No, I was saying like what I want to say may sound a little contradictory to everything I've been saying before. Yes,
you talked about your dad.
Where I talked about like saving and all that. And that is still important. But I also like believe in enjoying the work of your labor, right? The work of your hands, right? Whenever you can and reasonably so. If you like, my friends or people in my close circle, if I have the money to go eat something that I've been craving, it's not every day we get to spend money.
Yeah, true. Like I was talking about how last time we came to his place, the money is spent on food, right? That's crazy.
And it's just a one-time thing. It's not like you spend money like that every time. But like People have lived and worked off their asses and not enjoyed the stuff they worked for and died. It's not because death is the motivation for living for me. I believe that life is the motivation for living. So, but that doesn't also mean you shouldn't save. There can be a balance of the books. You need to be careful of what is called black tax. I'm all for taking care of your family. You got to do that responsibly. So, right, I'm all for being kind. I'm all for being charitable. But you've got to budget your charity. And that's what I call finance 101. You have to budget it. You have to have set aside, this is what I'm going to give to people this year, and when I exceed it, I'm not giving anybody shit. Right? There will be times once in a while where there are emergencies and you cannot but dip into some other funds, but that does not have to become often. You understand? So say no when you have to say no to people. Nobody's going to kill you for saying no. And nobody has ever died from saying no. They say givers never lack. And I get the ideal. I get the idea behind it. Because it's good to do good. But giving can be your way into penury. It's just like if your debit is more than your credits, your books will be negative. This particular person, and eventually I had to block the person. I really block people. I don't even like it, but I just couldn't help it. You wanted to destroy my life. Just block them. Then nobody's going to sue you for getting blocked. Or blocking people.
Blocking people.
I rarely block people. I've only blocked you online. I didn't block you in real life. I've not blocked you everywhere. I can see you somewhere and say, about only say I want to block you. Emergency me.
All right. So, Casey, I mean, you're a tech analyst, right? So, for people who do not know what you do, right, what would you say you do as a tech analyst?
It's a fancy name, but yeah, but basically, I mean, my work is journalistic. I'm reporting about trends in the technology space. I'm writing analysis about them. Right? There are impacts. I'm looking at the most compelling trends, especially in the worlds of AI, cybersecurity, energy transition, and 5G. Right. And so my work, basically just reports about what's happening. So, it took me like 3 years to 3 years to actually get it, because I kept trying and trying again. So I don't back down, I keep looking. I was very polite about it. I wasn't sending the follow-ups every day. I was giving space in between. And then I had sent 4 follow-ups, right? Because I just wasn't, I'm like, let me hear from you. And I was spacing it. So I was giving 7 days in between each email, So that was I followed up 4 different times in a month. That's 28 days. That's reasonable enough. And then the editor just texted me and said, "Stop spamming me."
Are you serious?
Damn. Please stop spamming me. And then I said I wasn't trying to spam you, blah 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 blah. And then later in the year, because now I started to meet more people, I'd travel a bit around, and I was meeting people. And I was like, oh, I mean, I see you write here. I would like to write here. And so one of my friends who knew an editor made an intro, right? And then, but the editor said, well, we're sorry, your background seems impressive and your samples look great, but at this time we're not looking for contributors. I mean, there's nothing you can do. They're not looking for contributors. And then, again, I tried, another person did an intro the following year. So it took me 3 years. And then the editor then said, oh, okay, looks good, and we're hiring now. Send us your application. And then it's a really rigorous process. It took me you have to really think about what you want to write about, and because they're very stringent with the process, very strict. So I applied, and then they were like, oh, the editors and the panels liked the application, and they wanted to move forward. So That was how it happened. So I leveraged the power of my network, you know, which is very important. This is an example I usually make. If a person wakes up in the night and studies and then, you know, passes their exam, it is easy to make a mistake and say, oh, for you to pass your exam, you have to study in the night. Not necessarily. For you to pass your exam, you have to study that. Yeah. So the cool thing is that the world now is a global village. Work hard, know that you can do big things from a small place, and leverage the power of the internet for yourself. There's nobody I cannot email. You will say no, and I will go and email another person. You know, that's how it's always been for me. And it wasn't like I was brash about it. One time I emailed a senator in the US. I don't even know what I said to him. I don't care that he read it or not. I emailed it. There was even one time I emailed this guy. I sent a DM on Twitter, Buster Rhymes, about Web3 and Metaverse. And there was a time I was writing a lot about the Metaverse. And I DM'd him, Buster Rhymes, if you ever watching this video, go and check your Twitter. I've emailed you before. Maybe next person I'll email now is Elon Musk. Don't shut yourself out of opportunities. You miss all the shots you do not shoot. If you shoot many shots, some will go in. The less you shoot, the less you score. And just learn to do much with the little that you have. I didn't have a laptop for many years. I said it, I was like doing a lot of things on my phone. I was writing, do you know how many words a 10 paper can be? Sometimes 6,000 words. I'm typing this on my phone. You're doing all the research on my phone, right? In fact, my final year project, there were many parts of my final year project that I wrote on my phone when I was in school. Even though I had already had a laptop then, I had a mini laptop. But I was so used, I said like till now, I still do some work on my phone. Because I'm like really used to it, you know? And it's with me. I don't need to pull something out of my bag. I can just type on the go. And that's all there is to it. So leverage whatever you have at your disposal, the internet, whatever. You can learn anything. Get it. Become so valuable. Become so much of an asset that it's difficult to say no to you. Know exactly what you bring to the table. I think it was Emmanuel Faith. I don't know if you know him. He's an HR guy. Very fantastic guy. Who I saw on the status one time where he said, and it's aligned a lot with my values and, you know, the things that I had also been saying for many years, that collaboration is the new competition. You know, very many times people are competing with their friends. Come together, do stuff together, right? You're more likely to succeed that way than just fighting each other and competing in a market that is already stiff. You get, you know, so there are a lot of freelancers that I work with, you know, we pass projects to each other. We do a lot of work together, sometimes to analyze where that industry is heading.
That's so cool.
It's cool.
Right? Yeah, cool.
Sharp. That's it. And I wanted to make, you know, fry something for us to eat. Cheers. Keep watching. Subscribe, like, engage, share. This is the best place you can be right now if you want to grow.